Welcome back. Hour number 2 on this Monday morning, and we continue with, I would say, a very pressing topic. It came into the public domain and the news cycle last week, and that is, of course, the migrants and school placement come September. So that is a major development. And we saw a father's passionate plea on social media, and of course that got the conversation going again concerning school contributions. In that regard, we welcome TTUTA's president, Martin Lumpkin. He joins us on the Zoom line to break down the two major developments coming out of last week. Of course, the first one is nothing new. We have known and heard of these school contributions for many years, but we heard now and we're seeing the ministries making an official statement on it. So we'll get to that momentarily. As always, great to see you, and thanks for the time, Mr. Lumpkin.
Good morning, Mr. Williams, and thank you. I must thank you for having me on your program. It's always a pleasure to be here on your program, having the conversation of what affects the education system. If we do have time, please indulge me. And there's a third issue with ECCE teachers, if we get the time to highlight as well.
Yeah, most definitely. We will make sure that we get everything in this morning. So I want to start with the contribution scenario. It's not a new one. I would have contributed. I would have paid a contribution when my son registered some years ago. Ministry now, they're making a statement, and I'd love to know TTUTA's position on this, because again, schools must run on resources. We know some are government assisted, some are full government schools, and every school, based on their need and capacity, would need certain things. And I guess there's some parents who don't mind, they will send forward a contribution. But then there's some schools I realize it's almost like if you don't contribute, the parent wonders now if the child will be blacklisted, if your family be looked upon in a certain way. Where did this even come from? When and how did this culture begin?
So you said it, Mr. Williams, in your time, you would have made contributions, in my time as well too. And so this would have come up because of that post by the parents, and rightfully so. Parents are concerned of having to make contributions to the school because schools, public schools, whether government-assisted or government-run schools, are supposed to be funded by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago through the Ministry of Education. But the funding over the years have not been what is required of the school to actually run the school properly. I must say that basically the contributions were done during the registration of new intake, primarily at the secondary school and mainly the denominational schools, because they face a peculiar instance in their funding. They do get funding from the Ministry of Education, but not as much as the government schools. And one of the things I want to highlight with the denominational schools, they have to pay for security from their purse. And you realize that, that's one area. There are other areas as well too. So we are saying at TTUTA, the circular that was sent out, now it's not the first time, the circular that was sent out, we agree with it wholeheartedly. We have no objections to it, content as well as intent. However, it should be placed along, as you rightfully said, along the lines or in the context of funding for schools. So if the Ministry of Education would fund schools adequately, and on time, there would definitely not be the need for this. It may be far and in between. However, the majority of schools would be content with the level of funding such that they do not have to find ways to get contributions.
Let me ask you, Mr. Lumpkin, because you're also a principal and you would have that experience. For those looking on who are not aware of the ins and outs of running a school, what's the most expensive, or I would say the most costly factor? Because a school is almost like a small country, and the principal is like the prime minister, the president. You have to now manage it's light bill, water bill, sometimes furniture might mash up. I would imagine there are so many factors to deal with on a daily basis. Where's the bulk of the money going? Why does a school, in terms of needing the extra resources, a principal would make that request? To fill what hole exactly?
Okay, it will all depend on the school itself. So you have some schools who are newly built and within the last 5 to 10 years and would not have the challenges of minor repairs. Well, they have minor repairs, but major repairs and so. But there are schools that are 20, 30, 50 years old. Granville RC would have celebrated 97 years, I believe. We have been decanted since 2016. So we are out of where we were supposed to be. And so that's what, about 5, 6 years of having a relatively new school container-wise and so. Repairs, minor repairs, but it also has to do with consumables as well too. So you have the stationery, and I want to point out, repairs, upkeep of photocopying machines. That is not on any of the schedule of funding. So principals have to find ways of maintaining these photocopiers or even purchasing new photocopiers. That is almost a monthly area of spending that schools have to look after. Then there's furniture as well too. For a number of years since I have been back at the school, we've been having requests for new furniture. And since the time I left in November of last year, we have not gotten any new furniture. Some schools may have gotten, but in terms of my school, we haven't gotten that. And so even repairs to furniture and procurement of and purchasing of other supplies, because at the primary school, they fund you approximately $90 per student for the entire academic year. And that is to purchase toilet paper, cleaning supplies, stationery, and so on and so on. And that is not adequate because you can have an average, yes, but sometimes it may fluctuate above or below. And so the funding is not adequate and it does not come in on time. Secondary is even further. They have more spending, depending on the size as well too, because we have large primary schools.
And I would imagine all the extracurriculars in terms of musical instruments, sporting equipment, all that will have to be provided by the school also.
The Ministry of Education within recent times would have provided some level of physical education, and the Ministry of Health did intervene at one time to provide as well too, because they were looking at health and wellness.
Excellent.
However, in the secondary school, when you have SBA practicals, the school have to purchase, so food and nutrition, if they have to do SBA, school-based assessments, based on that, the school has to provide the materials, the ingredients, and so on. Out of the secondary, they're supposed to provide PPE for the labs and as well as equipment for PE, physical education teachers, their tracksuits and their shoes and so. So you can imagine the level of spending that these administrators have to go through on a termly basis.
I could only imagine running a school from, again, it's one of those situations where, I mean, I could understand the plea of the father, because if you have multiple children, it's going to be really a tough order. But running a school, it's no walk in the park, and it's one where I could only, as a person in media and also who contributes in entertainment, I would always give of my time and try to help a school out when it comes to fundraisers. So I guess that's why barbecues, all-inclusive events, whatever the PTA or the school body they're doing, I think it's important for us to probably give that a strength and a support so the school could now get the resources. As I pivot now to the migrant scenario, I saw the statement out of TTUTA, I guess, coming from you last week concerning I guess there are some concerns. And I would imagine it's more a capacity concern, because I know that education is a fundamental right of the child. And I was actually happy to hear that migrants are getting the opportunity to send their children come September. But I know there were some concerns. I'll give you a chance to elaborate on these concerns.
Sure. And you touched on one such concern, which would be capacity. And
that's just basically space. We're talking here, you just believe they don't have enough space for the children.
Yeah. There are some schools in Trinidad and Tobago that, and within certain zones, they are challenged in terms of the number of spaces as compared to the number of students who apply for spaces. And so that's one of the issues in terms of adequate spacing for some schools. There are some schools that are underpopulated in terms of, if you look at the ratio, and that's another issue. We are hoping that the ministry would not force these schools to go outside of the ratio of students to teachers. It's based upon sound education practice that you should not have a class larger than, and in the primary, when you look at the infants, not larger than 25, and in the standards, not larger than 30. However, we have schools exceeding that. So that's one concern. We are also mindful that, yes, there will be certain areas that need more than others. However, it must not be to the detriment or the, not having our locals, our citizens having access to the spaces. That's another area as well too. And then resources for the schools. With the increase in population, we are also concerned about that. School feeding, would that budget be expanded? But mainly as well would be that communication and the cultural differences. How are we bridging that gap between not only student to teacher, but students to students as well too? By and large, our teachers are not trained fully to deal with that cultural and language barrier and differences. We have teaching of Spanish in primary schools, but it's just basic. When you have to now communicate effectively with these new students, are they going to send resource personnel, or are they going to do a level of training such that it can adequately address that? And these are some of the issues that we are concerned about, psychological in terms of the students that now coming in, any orientation. Those are some of the areas that we are hopeful will be addressed by the, not only Ministry of Education, because I want to say this, the Catholic Education Board of Management, and I know the Archdiocese of Trinidad and Tobago. Those are the bodies that would have been pushing for migrants to be included in the school system. And they have reached out to TTUTA to give a sense of their contribution towards this whole issue.
Well, keep us posted with the high-level talks and the developments, because everything you mentioned there, it's real. Obviously, integration, being able to bridge that gap, the language barrier, the cultural differences. But I'm thinking once we're able to get it together, that could probably be the start of the healing, because as we know, there are so many different issues between Trinbagonians and migrants. I mean, there are many who coordinate and live in harmony. There are many who are married and they are part of the family structure now, but there are still certain issues on the ground, and probably with the children, integrating with the Trinbagonian children, that could be the start of something special. But again, that must be managed and dealt with in real time. So you'll keep us posted. I want to give you a chance to touch on the ECCE developments. What you want to establish with us this morning?
Okay, so Mr. Williams, I can take a whole show speaking about the ECCE sector and the treatment of our teachers. TTUTA is totally disgusted, for want of a better term. And the way the Ministry of Education is treating our ECCE teachers, they are the foundation of our education system. We all agree that they are necessary. However, you have these persons on contract for years and not bringing them into the establishment. One of the requirements for that is to change the legislation to include ECCE children, students, as the legal age for schooling. Right now it's 5. It should be down to at least 2.5 years to 3 years as the legal age. And once you can do that, then the sector can move on. But we are treating these teachers, and we contend they are teachers because although the legislation may not and is very gray in terms of calling them teachers, we believe they are teachers. And one of the things the ministry and even the CPO keeps asking us when we bring up these points, do you represent them as a bargaining unit? The answer is no. However, we have individual members, and we cannot sit by and allow these teachers to be treated such. So the contract is one area, and coming to the end of the contract period, the teachers were asked to apply, we understand. However, they were going to be subjected to an interview for a position that they have been holding on contract for a number of years. Mm-hmm. We had to intervene, the ministry agreed. But what is so vexing about this whole thing is that the Ministry of Education is taking a template contract and applying it to a specific area of the teaching service. And they're applying what applies to the public service, to the teaching service. One such is the vacation. They're allowing them 20 days vacation to be taken when the ministry says they can take it. So now school is closed. There are no children in any of the sectors. However, you are having these teachers come out to school to do what? And then during the vacation period, they are not employing the cleaners. So is it that you want these teachers to be there to clean the centers? Is it that the reason you are having them come out? And the last renewal of contract, they sent the teachers the contract on the Sunday before the last week of school and asked them to sign it by the Tuesday. That in our minds had no good intent there. And in the contract, there were only 3 terms of conditions. One, the length of contract, 3 years, the salary, and the vacation. The other terms and conditions were left out. So when they signed this first part, they can bring anything now and have them binded to it. And all of these things, and the teachers were threatened. If you don't sign it by a certain time, in 3 days' time, tomorrow, you may not get your contract renewed, you will not be paid, and so on.
What you're saying is so concerning, and I wonder if some of this stems from the culture of early childhood care, because, again, back in the day, when it was not as formal as now, because clearly things are formalized and, with TTUTA and yourself, you're pushing for greater representation and rights for these important caregivers and teachers. But back in the day, I remember it was almost like auntie this. Somebody will just take care of the children in an area. You'll know that's Auntie Myrtle, Miss. It was always an auntie somebody, a very rare uncle. So it was an auntie this, auntie that in the area, send your child there. And that was like your early childhood care. But now it's a bit formalized. They have, buildings and now, resources in place. So the infrastructure is there. But I'm thinking that the personnel, those who are managing and running this most important and probably the first intro into the system for the children, they should be taken care of. Do you suspect, as we wrap things up, they will be given any adjustments? Any adjustments will be made to their contract and to their terms soon?
We are always hopeful. We are always going to dialogue with the Ministry of Education. The ministry has indicated to us that they are in dialogue with the Chief Personnel Officer in terms of the contract. But we will continue to highlight this. Hence the reason we are out in the public to let them know of the ills that the teachers are facing. And you are quite right in saying that it's formalized now. And the ministry, by building all of these centers, would have signaled to the public and signaled to everyone that there is a need for these teachers. And if there is a need, bring them into the establishment and treat them as they should. We are saying, and I'm going to publicly say it, and I'm not afraid to say it, this is modern day slavery. They are beating our teachers into submission to accept what they want. And I challenge the Ministry of Education to otherwise, because you are forcing them to sign the contracts, even though you have dialogue with the union for these individuals, you are still forcing them to sign it. So that to me is in bad faith. And we are not going to stand for that. Enough is enough. We are prepared to take this to other levels as well.
Well, Mr. Lumpkin, keep us posted, and we will touch base soon. And again, any major developments during the course of this July-August vacation, as it pertains to education, we will always lean towards your words and at least get the tutor perspective. Very important stakeholders in the education ecosystem.
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin, all the best.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for having me. I am not on vacation like the teachers, as I told you earlier, so you can reach out. The media can get me at any time.
As they say, you're walking. You're on the ball. Nice.
Thank you.
Mr. Lumpkin, all the best. Touching base with us this morning. Up next, we touch base with the Ministry of Education. This time around, we will get details concerning their vacation revision program. Dr. Peter Smith joins me next.